one of the reasons that we point out to prospects and clients to do this work is that we want to unleash a diverse group of individuals. We talk about the room
Mm.
intelligence and how we can tap into this notion that nobody's as smart as everybody. And um something I've been thinking a lot about lately, and I totally agree with you. This is cognitive diversity. It transcends all types of diversity, and so we have to look at every cross sectionality we can to think about who are we not including, who needs to be included, and neurodiversity is something I've been thinking about a lot lately because people
Mm.
think differently and people like have like different um, things that might impede their ability to contribute. And so, how are we supporting people that struggle with? I recently had a participant that um, is basically gets sick if they're in virtual backgrounds, and so we had to think about how we
Wow.
create space and support individuals with all different capabilities and needs. And the last thing I'll say there is just because I love just looking at all the angles, and I love even thinking about the shadow sides of all the good things. I've had clients in situations where the desire, the mission for inclusivity has actually created problems because they swung the pendulum so far in the other direction. There's now this FOMO effect of everybody trying to be in every meeting, and I would
Yeah.
say having everybody in the meeting is just as bad as having the wrong people in the meeting is just as bad as having people not in the meeting that should be there. And so it's not paying attention to the purpose of your meeting, and which is we talk a lot about how purpose is really critical. And so I highly encourage folks like don't overdo it because it will create situations that are just as bad. And we want to make sure that people are doing their best work, that they're loving being at work and remaining passionate about work, and we don't want to stifle that. And I think um, it'll basically consume people and suffocate them if they're just in meetings they don't need to be in.
Which is most humans. And I'm a firm believer, very strongly, that you don't have to hate your job. This mindset of just hating the 9 to 5 and bashing the 9 to 5. I loved my job at Toyota. And I believe everyone deserves a job that they love. I don't think it's a false reality. Something that you spoke to that's really interesting to me is, uh, bringing in different modalities and healing the siloed departments. In the work that I do, very often people are like, oh, so you humanize brand. Well, I mean, sometimes, oh, so you humanize CX, customer experience. Well, yeah, that happens a lot because there's a lot of people who have problems with that. Oh, you humanize email drip campaigns. Yes, a lot because everyone hates these automations. And so we have identified there's 4 key critical areas that we find are the most disconnected when it comes to an overall ecosystem that your organization creates. And those 4 critical areas that affect that are brand, customer experience, culture, and employee experience. And generally speaking, every company has like a variation where they're like very human in their brand, but they don't deliver on their customer experience. Or they have a great internal culture, but they show up to clients polished, full of corporate jargon and super uncomfortable. And so you're not showing up as a whole company, which creates this inconsistent
Mm.
experience. Wait, I liked you when I dealt with this guy. I didn't like you when I dealt with that guy. Do you experience the same in the sense of if you were to identify like the 3 or 4 or 5 key disciplines, topics that you're really merging based on what people are demanding
Mm.
from you and customers are asking for? What are those in your world?
I would say the main things that we'll see would be design sprints are quite often things that we get asked to do, and if it's not a design sprint, there's probably some sort of flavor or something, some nuance of design sprints or design thinking that finds its way into the work we do. Also, quite often there's liberating structures thrown in there, and another modality that we use quite often would be appreciative inquiry because we're trying to help organizations think about what is possible and what might be available to them in the future. So rather than focus on the negatives or what's broken, we're really like to focus our conversations on what's working. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's always cross-functional groups exploring problems together. So it's a lot of just solving challenging problems, getting aligned, and finding potential together as a group. And so that's I think that really kind of summarizes quite nicely the work that we're doing. I guess the only other lens I would say is there's also a heavy dose of learning experience design and learning science, because often there are key mindsets and philosophies and capabilities that we had to help people understand in order to do the work. And so we're mixing the kind of working on the problem and the training together. So we're kind of like nuancing those, a little bit of yin and yang. It's kind of a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that, and then you kind of like get your way there. So I think that's kind of how we like to think about it.